Thanks for joining us live, our second live stream here with the Iowa Revolution podcast. Thanks for clicking play, probably from Dr. Bob's Substack, Deep Midwest. We're going to get into one of your articles that you just put out today with Matt Russell, Dr. Bob, here on today's show. Also talking more about our waterways and how disgusting they have become here over the past 20 years or so. Also, of course, the biggest news in the country right now and there's ongoing hearings as we speak right now on Capitol Hill about the cluster F with the signal chats and Pete Hegseth and all of our national security officials giving this information to an Atlantic reporter. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on that, Dr. Bob. I'm sure you'll have many thoughts on that. Also, we have our Iowa segment this week. This week, we're going to be talking about Bill Gates. He says that, so we've talked about all the different jobs that AI will be replacing over the next 10, 20 years. He thinks that nurses and doctors will, for the most part, be obsolete in the next 10 years, according to Bill Gates. We also have some good news. Surprisingly enough, Dr. Bob, good news, finally.
Great.
We have good news about the National Park Service employee that was laid off early on in the Trump administration with all those mass layoffs. Well, good news on that front. We also have a factoid of the week. It is Iowa-centric. And to close out the show, top 5 movie cameos today. I also want to see how many of these movies you've seen, because I'm putting the over-under on a half. You may have seen one of these movies.
We'll see.
And that's probably a stretch. So let's get into this. This is from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. By the way, thanks to everybody that's joining us live. This is Iowa Revolution. My name is Spencer. He's Dr. Bob. 141 people have joined us already. This is from the Cedar Rapids Gazette. More than 4 years ago, Terry Scahill bought a land along the banks of the Yellow River in Allamakee County, a place he had visited for decades to camp and kayak. But the retired electrician said he's since witnessed the river transform. Its banks have widened due to flooding, and its water quality has declined, sometimes to the point where kayaking on the river has become impossible. I'm quoting Scahill here. He's 70 years old. He said, "It's terrible, terrible. It stunk so bad." He told that to Investigative Midwest last June, referring to a particularly polluted day for his stretch of the river in northeast Iowa. Quoting him again, "And obviously it's coming out of all the feedlots, into the little streams and whatever. And of course they had to put all the fertilizer on the fields, and the fields weren't yet growing, so there it is, right down the river." Pollution from industrial agriculture is one of the main contributors to the impairment of hundreds of rivers and lake segments across the state. As a result, many bodies of water fail to meet federal and state quality standards for drinking, swimming, or fishing. Nearly 8 out of 10 river segments have been in continuously impaired status for at least a decade, according to an Investigative Midwest analysis of reports from the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. During that same period, 10 years, 43% of lake segments have experienced a similar condition. In fact, 65 river segments, or 15%, and 6 lake segments, 11%, have fallen short of a key water quality standard for a specific use and impairment for at least 20 years, so going on 2 decades of filthy water.
Yeah, and that's one of the most beautiful places in the state. It's got some active trout streams. There's people working to protect it. I want to point out the Driftless Defenders, Chris Jones, Jim LaRue. I'm not sure of everybody else, but check out Driftless Defenders. I know Larry Stone has been doing some work up there as well. There's been litigation. There's been, all kinds of things going on. But I should say, subscribe to Chris Jones' Substack, the Swine Republic, and Larry Stone also has a good one as well. But yeah, they're filthy. I was near a park where I walk every morning the other day, and they were spraying manure, and then there's runoff right into a stream, right into Cedar Creek, and it's just really gotten pretty bad. And there was lots of gains made under the Biden administration with respect to investments, because a lot of farmers in the past have been incentivized to externalize those costs. Okay. And the Biden administration incentivized them, to do things like buffer strips and, different climate smart practices. And those are all going away. It's just going to get worse. I'm old enough to remember when I've said this before, when we would spend all day in the creek and swimming, and from the smaller streams, we'd even drink out of them. Now, we just can't do that.
Yeah, I actually wanted to point out, Laura Bellin brings up a good point in the chat, and I'm the same way. So we have Lake Red Rock just in our backyard in Marion County. When I first moved here about 20 years ago, I would go with my friends and go to the beach there and go swimming. I haven't swam there in probably at least 10 years and will not, because it's disgusting.
Well, the different tourism folks don't want us to say this, but Chris Jones told me maybe 6 or 7 years ago, it may be the dirtiest lake in North America.
Right.
So certainly in the Midwest, and nothing is going to be done about it. I just read the other day about how the EPA was getting rid of all kinds of rules and regulations. This is the new deregulated, world where all of these companies want to externalize their costs. And by externalizing their costs, that means we pay for it if we do anything at all, but they don't want the taxes to pay for it. It's just a really bad situation. Really, Chris Jones is, the tip of the spear on this. And we just have, and he's very critical of Democrats at all. Democrats haven't really made any efforts on clean water. And the DNR and Department of Agriculture, our Republican leaders act like there's no problem with our water, and it's terrible. And I think it's a bipartisan issue that we should be able to come together because we all want clean water. Part of the problem is younger people don't know what it's supposed to be like. They think it's supposed to be brown or green, and it's not. Right. And so, we could also be, those people that live in the big cities could also not be putting all of the nitrogen on your yards as well. I mean, this is one of the things that they point out. The Farm Bureau points out, well, most of it's coming from the big cities, or they also like to say from goose poop, but it's from mostly our hog operations. But this is, yeah. So, I'm very sorry. People, if you want to do something, the driftless defenders are doing it right. They're litigating. You and I can sit here and yak all we want, but they're actually litigating. And so if you want to help, go to, it's just https driftlessdefenders.com and make a donation, help them out.
So you mentioned that this should be a bipartisan thing. We should all be on board with this. I know the answer to this. Obviously, it's big money, but there's got to be more solutions at the State House than what we're seeing right now, because right now there is no solution. They don't even talk about the disgusting waterways that we have in our state. And even Kim Reynolds giving $1 million to that new cancer research fund in the state is just, it's laughable.
Yeah. It's just lip service. Yeah. So there should be something that we can do. There should be, a national effort. This isn't just Iowa, although Iowa is one of the worst places and one of the worst places for cancer. They'll argue that there isn't any real, link between nitrogen and cancer or glyphosate and cancer, but there's something going on. So they're also trying to. They shut down the 70 water monitoring stations that Chris Jones used to monitor at the University of Iowa, because they want to say that there's no problem with our water. And if we don't monitor it, they can say there's no problem. And also, if they depopulate rural Iowa, which is what they're trying to do, and what the Trump administration is working actively toward, is the depopulation of Iowa, nobody's going to be able to see it. And so if we can't see it, they're just acting like it's, and I'll say this time and again, they're acting like the landscape of Iowa. They're mining it like it's the dark side of the moon.
We'll end on this thought. This is Blue Thoughts from a red state in the chat. Compliance is voluntary, and even if violations are found, it's cheaper to just pay the fines than fixing the problems. So thanks to Blue Thoughts from a red state on that. And we've talked about this on the show before. In fact, really about the Nishnabotna River and how that river was basically just completely destroyed in southwest Iowa. And that company is going to have to pay a fine. And that's it. They keep on doing business as usual.
I think it's a $10,000 fine for their incompetence. Somebody left a valve on over the weekend. There's different ways to stop that. But how much should you have to pay if you kill a river? What is the price tag on a river? What is a river worth? Millions and millions and millions and maybe $1 billion. I don't know. But a $10,000 fine, that's not going to stop anything.
So I want to get to this, and this is kind of a good segue because you and Matt Russell talked about this issue quite a bit in terms of just agriculture in general. This is from Dr. Bob and Matt Russell at Deep Midwest. You just posted it this morning on your guys' Substack. I believe it's also cross-posted on Matt Russell's Substack as well. Is that right, Dr. Bob?
It sure is. And it's growing rural leaders. And so it's really good. Matt and I have been writing together for almost 10 years. When he was in the Biden administration, he couldn't write, and now he's back and he's doing a great job with it. We're doing some things together, but some things we're doing separately, of course. And he had just a really great piece on the national security breach. I think it came out yesterday because he had national security clearance in the Biden administration. He lays out exactly what went wrong. So yeah, Matt's great. Go subscribe.
And we'll talk about that situation here in just a bit, but I do want to quote you guys, Dr. Bob, here. Let us count the ways Republicans are showing disdain for our neighbors, our family members, our friends, and our coworkers in rural Iowa. Their actions reveal their loyalty lies with the community of Trump rather than the communities where we live, work, and play. Senators Chuck Grassley and Joni Ernst should know how many USDA employees have been fired by President Donald Trump or took the resignation offer Elon Musk gave them. Representatives Randy Feenstra, Marionette Miller-Meeks, Zach Nunn, and Ashley Hinson should all know how many USDA jobs have been lost in their districts. We've seen no evidence that they do. The courts are now demanding that thousands of federal employees fired by Trump to shrink the federal workforce must be reinstated. Politico reported on March 13th, quote, U.S. District Judge William Alsup described the mass firings as a, quote, sham strategy by the government's Central Human Resources Office to sign up legal requirements for reducing the federal workforce, end quote. This is an easy lift. If Republicans valued our local USDA agricultural leaders, they would stand with federal labor law, the courts, and these public servants. They aren't. They chose Trump and Musk over the mostly rural Iowans who work at the Farm Service Agency, the National Resources Conservation Service, and Rural Development. They do not stand with the researchers at Agriculture Marketing Services who provide the public information farmers depend on to sell their crops. They don't care about the enforcement that employees at the Packers and Stockyards Act do, like make sure farmers get paid when they sell their livestock. USDA also employs Iowans who work in fields such as food safety, veterinary science, and many other fields of research.
Yes, it's interesting. They're all very quiet, and I'm not a farmer, and I haven't worked for the USDA or the NRCS, but I've interviewed a lot of people over the years, and I've been in the offices, and I watch what goes on. And they're there, and they help farmers, they help rural people do all kinds of different things. They help in a great many ways, making sure that people that are eligible that apply for whatever kinds of conservation or whatever kinds of benefits that they're due to help make our food supply stable, they're there to help. And so,
I used to see Angie Voss. See Angie Voss from the FSA every week. She would come in and give a weekly report. I think she's since retired, so we actually don't have that segment anymore on our radio station. But so I saw her every week. She was just the best person in the world. I loved Angie Voss. And I'm not a farmer, not really involved in agriculture in any way, just live and work in a rural area. But just in the 5 minutes that we would see each other each week, she would just have so much information. And then, of course, passing that information along to our listeners as well. So we're talking about very highly trained professional people that do a heck of a lot for a lot of people in our communities.
Yeah, and so they're totally dissed, totally devalued. And we need to remember that this is purposeful. They're taking a wrecking ball to all of these government agencies on purpose. And you know what? And the right-wing MAGA media, that's what I'm going to call it, is lying to the people of Iowa all of the time. And it's, they're saying that, Elon Musk is taking, I heard on WHO, I think last week I might have mentioned this, that Elon Musk is taking a surgeon's knife. He's looking at the federal budget line by line. No, he's not. You just don't fire thousands of people and then clean up the mess afterwards, or try to. People are scattering to the winds. Who would want to work for Trump's federal government? unless you're a Trump toady or something. I was reading this morning that scientists, some of our best scientists, are leaving the United States. They're fleeing, and this is on purpose. This is on purpose. All of our best and brightest, they want them destabilized, and I think fearful. I forget the exact words they used. Matt talked about this. They want the chaos. They want that. They want us to be fearful. So, and it's happening. And so it's total disruption for the end goal, power, and then also to extract all the public funds that they can, our funds, our tax dollars, and put it into private hands. That's the goal.
Republicans have done a great job marketing over the past, I don't know, pretty much since I've been alive, or at least paying attention. I'm 41, almost 42 years old, of convincing just regular Americans, middle class, lower class Americans, that government jobs do not equal them. Even though most of these jobs are considered middle class, lower, upper middle class. I mean, there's a huge variety of payment structures for these jobs. I mean, obviously a park ranger gets paid a little bit less than a district attorney, and you could go on. But we don't see, I shouldn't say we, Republicans don't see them as us. These people losing their jobs, losing their livelihoods, losing their identity, to them is laughable. They're laughing at it. This is what we voted for. But it's people losing their jobs.
Well, and it's going to come home. There's going to be a lot of Republicans that are going to lose their jobs, and they're thinking that they're not going to be impacted. As soon as it starts showing up, they're going to see it too, and they're going to see that that was a mistake. Democrats need to welcome them back with open arms. Don't show disdain. I don't think that helps anything. But it's like all of our congressional leadership, our governor, Mike Nagg, are silent on this stuff. They're not saying anything. I like Mike Nagg. I just do. He's fun. He's easy to talk with. He's knowledgeable, but he's silent, absolutely silent on with the upcoming tariffs and all the destruction to the USDA and to other government agencies. They're silent, and he should be leading. If they had any real, I don't know, if they shared our identities, they would be standing with us, not the billionaires, but they're standing with the billionaires. And I've been following Mike Nagg on Twitter, hoping I see something. And in the various drafts of the thing that you're referring to that Matt and I came out with this morning, I had in there that because I'm looking at his Twitter feed and he's showing up all over the place, getting pictures with FFA kids and ribbon cuttings and everything. And I wrote in one of our drafts that he's a show pony. They trot him out to look good for different photographic events when what we need is a workhorse. But then Matt talked me out of putting that in there. But, it's just.
Well, now it's out there, Dr. Bob. You still got it out there.
Yeah. So that's just me saying that. And, I don't, it's tough not to take this stuff personal, and calling him that, I'm sure is offensive to him. But do your job, Mike Nagg. Do your job, Ken Reynolds. Do your job, Grassley, Miller Meeks, Feenstra, Henson, Miller Meeks. Do your job.
Well, you guys say it right in the piece. It's an easy thing to do. This is an easy lift. I don't understand how they're so spineless on this stuff. To me, and like you said, this seems like bipartisan things where I don't know, it's almost a different reality that they live in. So it's hard to even rationally explain what they're thinking. But to me, it just seems like, isn't this what you get into government to do to clean, to help farmers, to have clean water? I mean, isn't that what they all say on the stump speech?
Yeah, but that's what they say. No, I don't even know if they talk about. Well, no, they'll talk about clean water. They'll say there's clean water and there's not. But they're just so fearful of Trump and being primaried. And I just think that sometimes, I think they also might be, Matt and I have written about this too. We think that there's some of them that are afraid for their lives. I mean, Trump's a mafia-like mob boss. He's going to control you one way or the other. And I think that's what's happening. Why? How can they all be so spineless?
That's my question. I really don't. I don't understand it. I don't understand how people, because these are not powerless people. These are people with egos that got into jobs that require egos, and they're just shriveled little nothings right now. It doesn't make sense to me. Why even do it?
Well, because the MAGA
And also,
media is covering for
here's
them.
another question too. You mentioned getting primaried and Trump's influence. Trump's influence is going to be waning. I don't even see that as something that I would even be worried about at this point. Trump is probably going to lose you more voters by the time we get to the midterms and gain you. So why would you care what he says at this point?
Because they can flip on a dime. They can hold all kinds of contradictory thoughts in their head at the same time. That's part of being MAGA. You have all these conflicting kinds of things in your head that logically can't exist in the same space, but because fearless leader, says that you have to follow along. That's their reality. They can't think independently. They can't challenge it. And why they don't realize the simplest playground rule is that if we all gang up, we can take out the bully. We can
Right.
take out the big bully, but they don't remember those lessons from playgrounds.
No, they're wimps, wussies. Thanks for joining us, by the way. If you are joining us live here on this Iowa Revolution podcast, coming to you from Dr. Bob's Substack, most likely is where you're probably coming from. That's Deep Midwest Politics and Culture. He also has Cedar Creek Nature Notes. And make sure that you follow us on Substack as well. We're Iowa Revolution on Substack. IowaRevolution.substack.com is where you can find us, or just Google it. And we'd be glad to have you join the revolution with Iowa Revolution. We do this once a week. Normally, we record this on Tuesdays and then release it on Wednesday afternoons. But of course, we are coming to you live. We did this last week. It went really well. So we're back live with you here today on a Wednesday afternoon. So let's get to this story, Dr. Bob, as we get into some cock talk, some political news from CNN. The Atlantic on Wednesday today published additional text messages from the Signal group chat of top Trump national security officials, underscoring a massive breach in operational security, as specific sensitive information about the Houthi attack was shared in the chat before it was carried out. President Donald Trump and his team have repeatedly sought to downplay the sensitivity of the information shared in the Signal group in the aftermath of the Atlantic's bombshell story on Monday. While they denied there was a, quote, war plan shared, the text messages published Wednesday offer an extremely detailed description of the coming strike, including the airplanes and drones used. The messages also rebut the claim from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and other Trump administration officials that war plans were not discussed on the chain. In a message sent at 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time and published by The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth shares operational details about the strike, saying, quote, weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM we are a go for mission launch. Again, that is from Pete Hegseth. Top U.S. officials have said the information shared in the text messages was not classified. And I'm quoting Goldberg and Harris here. If this information, particularly the exact times American aircraft were taking off for Yemen, had fallen into the wrong hands in that crucial 2-hour period, American pilots and other American personnel could have been exposed to even greater danger than they ordinarily would face. Again, that's from Goldberg and Harris. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz later texted to confirm that the target was in a building that collapsed and the strike was successful. By the way, Mike Waltz looks like the guy from American Dad, the cartoon. I swear all these guys are cartoon characters. Pete Hegseth is a cartoon character. Tulsi Gabbard these are all Family Guy characters. And about as competent. In fact, I would trust Quagmire, I think, more than I would Pete Hegseth.
Now, this was a security breach of the highest order. Security experts are saying it's, the biggest security breach in the last 40, 50 years anyway. They were supposed to be in secure rooms using secure communications when they're using a commercial application called Signal that is easily hacked. One of them that was on the call was in Moscow. So
Right.
Moscow knew exactly what they were doing. They're using Signal and not the fully approved means of communications. They're skiffs, I think they're called. They're supposed to be places where no one can see you. The security is secure. It's not like you're talking on the phone at a ball game. You need to be in a secure location. There's secure locations at every embassy. There's secure locations, throughout the Pentagon, and everywhere these people were, there were secure locations. So you have to ask yourself, why are they using this commercially available thing. Either they
Correct me if I'm
want,
wrong too, Dr. Bob. I think Signal also, doesn't that automatically delete your messages after a certain period of time?
I'm not sure. I'm just new to
Okay, here's a
Signal.
segment we like to call Spencer and Dr. Bob Google shit. So go ahead, Dr. Bob. I'm going to find out about what if Signal deletes messages or not.
Okay, so what would be the reasons to use a commercial application? Well, at least two come to mind right now. One is you want the information to leak. You want it out. Okay. The other is there's supposed to be a record of the conversations. They don't, that's supposed to ultimately go into the National Archive or into some national security space, for history's purposes. But there's supposed to be a record. They don't want a record. And so just think, what else have they been doing on Signal? What are they still doing on Signal? So, and this is terrible, and they're so incompetent that they included a journalist in it. And some places I've read where you can't always see who's who on Signal, but other places where you can. So, I don't know. It's just gross incompetence. It should, in any other administration, everybody that was on that call would be fired, and the president, there'd be a call for impeachment because he's put incompetent people in his cabinets, in his cabinet. They're just incompetent. And what do you expect when you get a Fox News host in charge of everything?
Exactly. I mean, that's the thing. This is Occam's razor. This is what was going to happen. When you hire somebody incompetent with no experience, this is what's going to happen. By the way, Laura Bellin has more experience with Signal than we do. She says that you can set it to automatically delete, but the app itself doesn't, delete it after a certain period of time. She does add, obviously, they were using this to avoid the public records law. Because, yeah, you're not going to have conserved records of this stuff. By the way, I also want to ask you, so the reporter from The Atlantic, Goldberg, left the chat. You were a journalist, still are a journalist, but, professional journalist with our radio station for 17, 18 years. Would you have left the chat?
I would have left. Well, I don't know. I'd like to think I would have left it because he thought it was, he wanted to prove whether it was, he wanted to know whether he was being, hoaxed or if it was real or not. And then I think he saw when he, got to clearly real sensitive information, he knew he shouldn't have his eyes on it, and I think that's why he got out of there. So he is a person of integrity.
So I know what he did. So in that moment where he decided I'm out of here, do you think he would have left?
No.
I was going to say I don't think he would have.
No, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have published it. I would have done what he did. Just let people know the story. But I would have
stayed in just to see how long it took for them to remove me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so
I shouldn't say just. That's not the only reason I would have stayed in the chat. But one of the reasons would be, why is it my responsibility to now remove myself from this chat? You guys invited me. If you don't want me here, then you kick me out.
Yeah. So, I don't know. He's a very good journalist. And so what they're doing is they're trashing him, saying he's terrible, saying they didn't do anything wrong. And they're trying to, I don't know, just bully their way through this, and they may succeed. But this is why we have to keep doing something to raise the awareness of the public, because the MAGA media isn't going to do it. But if we talk to our friends and, we share the word, I think that it's important. And I heard and I listened to all the different MAGA media, and I heard WHO radio coming in this morning. And perhaps the worst immigrant in America is Simon Conway. I mean, he's the only.
I thought you were going to say Elon Musk, but he's right up there.
No, Elon Musk is worse, but Simon Conway with WHO radio drives me nuts. And he's saying, we've got to get to the bottom of this, and I forget, so he was acting like it wasn't anything, but, let's just check it out. And who can check it out? Elon Musk. Who'll get to the bottom of this? We're supposed to trust Elon Musk?
So I wanted to bring that up too. So I read another article about this, and it said the quote from Mike Waltz was that he's going to ask Elon to help him. So not only has Simon said that, but Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, has said that he's going to ask for Elon's help to uncover how this all happened. So Elon will get to the bottom of this too.
Yeah, yeah, just
Doesn't that
ridiculous.
put so much faith in finding out what's going to happen here, Dr. Bob, or finding out what happened?
I'm so pissed off. I'm ready to egg a Tesla.
By the way, I talk with my hands a lot. If you haven't noticed, I don't know what to do with my hands, especially when I'm on camera. So this is Iowa. This is from CNBC. Over the next decade, advances in artificial intelligence will mean that humans will no longer be needed for most things in the world, says Bill Gates. That's what the Microsoft co-founder and billionaire philanthropist told comedian Jimmy Fallon during an interview on NBC's The Tonight Show in February. At the moment, expertise remains rare, Gates explained, pointing to human specialists we still rely on in many fields, including a great doctor or a great teacher. Quoting Gates again, but with AI over the next decade, that will become free, commonplace, great medical advice, great tutoring. In other words, the world is entering a new era of what Gates called free intelligence in an interview last month with Harvard University professor and happiness expert Arthur Brooks. The result will be rapid advances in AI-powered technologies that are accessible and touch nearly every aspect of our lives, Gates has said, from improved medicines and diagnoses to widely available AI tutors and virtual assistants. Gates told Brooks, "It's very profound and even a little bit scary, because it's happening very quickly and there is no upper bound. It may be a little scary to Bill Gates. It's very, very scary for the rest of us."
Yeah, it is. And, I forget all I think it was like 3 jobs we're going to need in the future, and I forget them all. I think one was a coder, and I forget. But I thought one was really interesting me, and that's biologists. We'll still need biologists. At least we'll still need biologists. I'm happy with that.
Okay, well, kids, if you're watching or listening, that's a great field to get into. Either learn to code or, yeah, check out some frogs. Check out Cedar Creek Nature Notes.
So, I mean, what are the consequences of that? We'll go into Well, I mean, we're going into dark ages anyway. They're attacking libraries. Our scientists are leaving. They're attacking institutions of higher education. They're micromanaging departments. One department at Columbia saying what it can and what it can't do. They're saying, and our Iowa Republicans are doing the same thing with higher education, with libraries, with schools. We're entering, and we can't teach kids things that make the adults feel uncomfortable because the kids are just ready to learn. The adults just don't
Exactly.
want them to learn, different
Right.
things, especially that, minority peoples have contributed to society and, in so many ways, they want to hide that. They're really pissed me off when I worked in um, northeastern Arizona in the 80s. I had a Navajo code talker friend who was a hero, and their code talkers were people that went in and of the different Native American languages and the different theaters, and they would speak in their native language to each other. And the Germans or the Japanese couldn't translate it, so they're heroes. And there's
Right.
movies made about them, and it's just this remarkable thing. And they're erasing them from history. One of the people raising the iconic flag at Iwo Jima was a Native American, and they took him down. For a while they even got rid of Jackie Robinson. I mean,
Correct.
and then they brought him back. So I
They
mean, it's
brought him back
just
because of public pressure. Right.
and it's fascism. This is absolutely Stalin-esque. And I just can't believe it. But I still don't see the uproar. There's a little bit, but there's nobody talking about it. Where amongst my friends, anyway, the uproar over rounding people up, no due process. We don't even know who they are, what they did, and being sent to the worst prison on earth in El Salvador. They're going to start disappearing all kinds of people. There's no accountability. And people say, "Oh, we're going to have a constitutional crisis when Trump ignores the courts." He's selectively ignoring the courts now.
Right.
He has absolute immunity thanks to the Roberts Supreme Court, and so this is a terrible mess that we're into. It's a constitutional crisis, but for some reason, people in the legislature, won't, aren't well. People are powerless, they say, both Republicans and Democrats, but certain people are fighting back. And I think that it has to start here, with us, with all of our friends joining together and people across the nation showing up in mass to show how angry we are. And what the people of Hampton and Tama did to Grassley when he'd had his town hall, good for you. Good for you people. I mean, they asked him the tough questions. They held him to account. And that's what we have to do. These people, we said something like Matt and I said that they're missing in action. And one of the people commenting said, no, they're hiding. He said, be specific. They're hiding from us, hiding from your constituents. Why don't you just do the right thing and work for the people rather than for the billionaires? And we'll be there thanking you.
Right.
Let us thank you. Do good work. Help people. Today, at the legislature, they're probably going to take away or, put some people off of Medicare. And they're doing all kinds of terrible things. They're taking away the rights of trans people. They're doing they're attacking our libraries. They're funneling money off to private schools rather than helping our schools. They're totally dismantling the systems as we know it and dealing with all of these kinds of things when they could be solving problems. This is all Project 2025 that's set up to build power for a fascist regime. There's no other way to call it. That's fascist.
So a couple of quick things. First of all, so should we all just give up because of this AI stuff, or I think I'm just going to give up.
I got off track.
What's really the point? What's really the point anymore? You know what I mean, Dr. Bob?
Well, this is all part of it. It's to make us so we aren't needed or valued, and so keep us hungry, working the minimum wage jobs.
Oh, I know.
When I was a kid watching the original Star Trek, I thought, well, that's going to be pretty cool. We all have replicators and we can all, learn to tap dance or sing or something or do creative kinds of things because we don't have to worry about getting, how to eat. I never would have thought that this would be that in an era where we could have, technologies like the replicator or whatever, or AI that could allow, us to not do the mundane tasks anymore. I would have thought that society would have empathy and provide a structure for all of us to live. But I don't know if that's the case. I think, they're demonizing
itself. Honestly, this and climate change are two of the biggest things that are going on right now. And we don't talk about it at all in terms of Congress, certainly the state legislature. It's not like we're introducing universal basic income at a national or local level at this point. Something has to be done. Otherwise, we're all going to be destitute. If you don't need doctors anymore, what are we going to do? What is anybody going to do? Literally, what are you going to do? What are you going to do for 8 hours of your day that had previously gone to some sort of constructive work?
Well, we would find other kinds of things to do. I would like to hope. I just work. That's what I do.
Everybody will have their own podcast. I can guarantee that. Everybody will have their own podcast in 10 years.
We have to,
sort of like the early portion of it. So maybe we can ride that wave.
And we need to recognize that what they're doing is they're normalizing all kinds of atrocities. They're saying it's okay.
How about some good news, Dr. Bob? Are we ready for some good news? This is from KCCI. An Iowa park ranger who was fired in the federal layoffs is returning to work, and he returned on Monday. He was let go from the Effigy Mounds in northeastern Iowa, and his name is Brian Gibbs. He was one of about 1,000 National Park Service employees who lost their jobs. On March 13th, a federal judge ordered 6 federal agencies to reinstate probationary employees who had been fired. That included National Park Service workers. In a Facebook post on Saturday, Gibbs said, quote, his unlawful termination was rescinded. He says he's going back to his dream job as a ranger, and he looks forward to leading field trips and sharing his love for parks.
That's not good news.
I know. I knew as soon as I started reading it, I knew you were going to be like, that's not good news. That's sort of like cleaning up bad news.
Yeah, I met a woman or talked to a woman a couple of months ago that worked for the CDC, and they said what they're doing is killing dreams. So he dreamed of being a park ranger, but he still doesn't have a secure position. They have to make it so it doesn't work. They're still not going to make our national park system work. Our national Forest Service isn't going to work. They don't want it to work because they always say government doesn't work. Government is the problem. Then they get into office and they underfund things, they cut things, they create a crisis, and then because of the crisis they created, they say we need to privatize. I mean,
Right.
Trump's saying, well, we don't need Canada. We don't need Canadian lumber. You know what that means? They're going to start, lumber operations in state parks and national parks. They haven't before, or, in Yosemite say, well, we don't need all those trees. That's too many. We'll build houses out of them.
Like
And
I
now,
said,
they'll
and at least
privatize it
40% of the
all.
country would say, hell yeah, what do we need those
Yeah.
trees for? Who cares?
I don't know. I think
Lumber's
that,
too expensive.
well, yeah, there's that. But I think people love the outdoors. It doesn't matter what party they are. The good news is we have to, we have to continue to fight at every turn. I'm glad he has his job back. But there's no way is it secure, and our national parks will suffer, and all of our government agencies are going to suffer. The entire agriculture industry is going to suffer, and so we have to fight. And you know what? I saw somebody at the Des Moines Book Festival the other day, and he says, I see one thing good coming out of what Trump is doing with respect to, demolishing our institutions and betraying American values. And I said, what's that? And he says, the speed at which it happens, which means that if we get back in power, we can work fast too. And I hadn't thought of that before. And I think that that's really good. And that when we get back into power, we make things right, we make things better. And that's something to learn from, and I appreciated that. And so we need to move fast and do it right, and I think that we can do it.
Factoid of the week, Dr. Bob. Iowa has more golf courses per capita than any other state.
No idea. That's interesting.
What do you think about that?
Why? Well, I think there's a real problem because most of those golf courses are built on sacred Native American grounds.
Also suck up a lot of water.
Yeah.
And it's interesting though. I mean, because, and I'm sure one of the reasons is because we have plenty of land. I mean, Iowa has plenty of land, period, that's just wide open. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy for a farmer to turn part of his farm into a golf course.
Well, I'm sure there's other farmers. The Farm Bureau doesn't want that to happen. I'll say that.
I'm talking about 100 years ago when they were starting to build these golf courses, or 50, well, maybe not 100, but 50, 60 years ago when they were starting to build. Because, I mean, it's honestly almost every county, and we've got 99 counties, and I would guess there was probably at least 3 golf courses per county. And obviously in Lynn, Johnson, and those kind of counties, there's, probably 5 or 6. So a lot of golf courses.
Well,
are you a golfer, Dr. Bob?
Am I a golfer? No.
Yeah, I know the answer to this, but no, you're not, are you?
No. I'm not going to golf. No, I'm not going to golf. Right now, all I can, I take my walk in the woods. I guess I could consider that a walk in the woods, but no, I'm not a golfer.
Yeah, wasn't it Mark Twain that said golf is a nice walk spoiled? Something that I may be paraphrasing. Are you ready for the top 5?
Sure, why not? You're the boss.
Actually, before we get to that, I think you got a message on, or at least it was on the Deep Midwest message on Substack. But speaking of Elon Musk, somebody was bringing up how, and you were bringing up fascism before, and how Trump is attacking these judges, Elon is attacking these judges, and now they're calling for the impeachment of these judges. Elon now may be funding people to primary other Republicans with the promise that they would impeach these judges that are stopping Trump from doing what he wants.
Yeah, and he's paying people $100 to sign a petition that they'll oppose activist judges. So no, I don't know if him or Trump are the greatest threat to democracy and our way of life. I don't know which one is. Both of them are. We need to, win the next elections. I mean, the midterms have to be ours, or, we're in even deeper trouble than we are.
This is top 5 movie cameos. Number 5, Bob Barker in Happy Gilmore.
I heard about it. I didn't see it.
Oh, him and Adam Sandler fist fight. And Bob Barker, he's got a pretty strong right hook. Number 4 is Matt Damon in Euro Trip.
Never
You've
watched
heard
it.
of Matt Damon, right?
I've heard of Matt Damon, yeah.
Okay, you've not heard of Euro Trip, I'm guessing.
Never heard of it.
Okay, well, he sings a song called Scotty Doesn't Know. Classic song. Classic song. Great cameo. Number 3 is Neil Patrick Harris, a.k.a. Doogie Howser, M.D., in Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. Ever heard of that movie before, Dr. Bob?
I've heard of it. Didn't see it. Wanted to go to it, but didn't.
To put it lightly, he definitely plays against character in this cameo. Number 2 is Bill Murray in Zombieland. That's the movie I thought you may have seen.
Nope.
Have you heard of it?
Nope.
Okay, well, it's fantastic. And yeah, so it's basically a post-apocalyptic zombie wasteland. And yeah, they go to Bill Murray's house. It's Woody Harrelson and Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone are the 3 stars. And they stop at Bill Murray's mansion while they're running away from zombies. And number 1, the best cameo of all time, Sean William Scott in Old School.
Never heard of it. Never heard of him or her, whoever.
That's Stifler. You never heard of Stifler before?
Nope.
Stifler from the American Pie movies? What am I doing here? I know you don't know these movies. Of course you don't know these movies. Honestly, if you did know these movies, there would probably be something wrong with you, especially the American Pie movies. Those have been way too young for your demo. But anyway, yeah, in Old School, Will Ferrell, you know Will Ferrell, right? Well, he shoots himself in the neck with a horse tranquilizer, and Sean William Scott is the horse trainer who tells him that hey, you got an effing dart in your neck. And it's one of the funniest scenes in, I think, movie history.
I know
the worst. That, Dr. Bob?
I wasn't listening to you anymore.
Well, hopefully some of our listeners were still listening to us here at the end. Thank you again for joining us here on this Iowa Revolution podcast.
I have one more thing to say.
Of course.
First, I'm not going to know a lot of pop culture nowadays. For the last 20 years, actually, since I went to graduate school in the late 1970s, I haven't paid a lot of attention to pop culture. But I do know, however, the worst cameo, the worst movie cameo in history.
I'm all ears.
You don't know it?
Well, maybe. I don't know. What is it?
Donald Trump in Home Alone.
That is a good one. Fantastic.
That's the worst.
Agree. We'll end it on that. Make sure you follow us on Substack, all 3 of our places to follow. First of all, this is the Iowa Revolution podcast. Dr. Bob and I get together on a weekly basis. We have a Substack, iowarevolution.substack.com. Make sure you follow us there, and then you'll get this podcast emailed to you each and every time that we record an episode. Dr. Bob has 2 different Substacks. He's got Deep Midwest Politics and Culture, where I'm guessing most of you are coming from right now. Also has Cedar Creek Nature Notes, taking a walk in the woods with Dr. Bob. And it is getting much nicer here recently, Dr. Bob, and spring is definitely starting to spring.
It's wonderful. Go outside, walk around, walk slowly, look at things, lay on your belly, look up at the sky, just soak yourself in the wonder and beauty of the earth.
Amen, Dr. Bob. It's always a pleasure. Can't wait till next week we get to do this again.
Thanks, Spencer.
Yep. See you, Dr. Bob.
See you.